Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Black Men Speak. My name is Tommy Duncan.
And I'm Jimmy Stewart.
And we're going to now delve into part 2 of the 5 biggest problems in the black community. So we started this dialogue and talked about a few specific areas that were addressed on Prager University. And so we're going to talk number 2 and number 1. Number 2 issue in the black community is the, what do we have here?
Proliferation of baby mamas?
Yeah, proliferation of baby mamas and the unquestioned allegiance to progressive policies.
Now, I will say this, is that actually each one of these could easily be a show in and of itself. We may come back and actually revisit the list, maybe revisit the list later on and maybe pluck a few of these out to dedicate some shows we can go into more detail. But yes, let's talk about baby mamas, which means that there's just a lot of women out here with children and no man in the household. Some of that dates back to our war on poverty programs of the 60s, alleviating men from the responsibility of raising families and taking care of their offspring. And now I think, even though that's not so much a requirement now of not having men in the household, but I think the mindset is set that the thinking is that I don't need to do anything for you because the government will take care of it.
Yeah, now this is a catastrophic problem in our community in particular. I mean, even historically, during no period in time in our history, in America or otherwise, have we seen the prevalence of women raising children and or taking really the full onus of responsibility for families in this dramatic proportion in our history.
Yeah, we're talking 3 out of 4.
Right. 70-something%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just a few years ago, that number was around 70%. Then 72, now it's over 75%. I mean, you're right. It's becoming, the bad problem is getting worse.
Right. All right. And the issue that we're dealing with, Jimmy, is the fact that when you're looking at a race for prosperity in America or any place around the world, and you're looking at a one-legged stool competing against a 2- or 3-legged stool, it's just not going to get us any further than where we are.
And you're correct. And actually, if you look at the growth of the black middle class and upper class in the last 30 or 40 years, if you extract out the poverty that's created from women raising children by themselves, the black folks have done quite well in America if you extract that group out. When you add that group in, it's such a large number, and it's so overwhelming of a problem that any accomplishments made by the black middle class or black upper class is overshadowed by the immense poverty that's created from having all these kids and only having one parent to take care of them.
And unfortunately, at this point, that has become the norm. That has become the model in our community. When you have, over 70% of children being born out of wedlock, and predominantly many of those are
exactly.
Yes. And very little to any contribution from the male parent in that environment. That doesn't bode well for the young man or the young boy who's growing up in that environment. It does not bode very well for the young girl in that environment, but for different reasons.
And to me, to add to this, it's an embarrassment when you talk to young men. Sometimes you hear some black men brag on the fact that they contribute to their children's life. I pay for my kids. I give their mother this, or I help them with that. And it's like in any other community, that's the norm. That's to be expected. But this problem is so pervasive in our community that for a person to simply do the right thing, it's something to brag on. It's not like you're doing anything special by taking care of your children. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take care of your children. And you want to brag on taking care of your children, something that other people just will assume that, okay, it's your child and you should take care of them.
Right. It's amazing. It's, it's kind of a sad story, but, I work with young people and college students, and working with young boys and young girls, and there is a young lady who just graduated from college about a year and a half ago, and he has plans to go to law school, but she's working right now. And when I talked to her, it's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad. She's like, well, I haven't had any children yet. And I was like, well, you're not supposed to have had any children.
Right.
You're only 23 years old. You're just getting out of school. You're supposed to be starting your career. But, she almost wears it like a badge of honor that she doesn't have any children. And I guess that is because so many of her peers in school have already had children and have kind of, I don't want to say have been derailed, but that has become the norm, that you have one or a couple of kids by the time that you're in your early 20s not married.
Right. Years ago, back in the 90s, I spoke at a ladies group, a Christian group, and one of the ladies there asked me the question. She told us the story about the guy that she was with. She had a baby with, then had another baby with, and then he left. Tom, the guy, was not working. He wasn't working when she met him. She had a place, so he moved into her place, and she made pretty good money, so she paid the bill, she worked, and she said that, one day he whispered in her ear that, he wanted her to have his child. Why she would entertain the thought of it from a guy who was not working is beyond me, but she did. So the first one was sort of planned. Baby number 2 was not planned, but after baby 2, he left, and so she asked me, why do you think he left? And so I kind of turned it around on her and said, I'm pretty sure he left because you working and raising 2 children, you probably didn't have a lot of time for him afterwards. It was probably okay with 1 child, but she would tell stories of how, he would be late to pick her up from work or late picking the kids up from daycare. For a person who's not working and has your car, what does he have to do all day except be there at 5:30 or 4:30 and pick the kids up and pick you up? How can you not be on time for this one task that's all you're responsible for the entire day? So I told her, I said, well, did it ever occur to you that maybe before you have a child with someone, to ask them to get a job? Any job. It doesn't just go out and if you made enough money to pay the bills and take care of the 2 of you, still a man needs to go out and work. Is it asking too much for him to show some responsibility? If you only have the 1 car, for him to now get a job and get his own car rather than use your car? Is it asking too much that he drop the children off at daycare and be able to pick them up on time, especially if he's not working? That's 1 task a day. And so when you start asking, why does someone leave? This guy was quite selfish from the very beginning because he should have asked you to have a child knowing that he's in no position to help support a child. And for you to entertain it and then go along with it.
That's my part. I guess my question is, and I'm pretty sure she's not an anomaly, where is the logic in even considering having a child, much less children, by someone who not only can't support children, but can't support you?
He can't support himself.
Right. I don't understand. And I guess my question is this, again, accountability and or responsibility. Surely, and this is a woman who knew he wasn't working, knew he couldn't do anything, but decided to have a child anyway. That is a recipe for disaster. So, I would hate to say this. Where's her responsibility in all of this? Before she even made the decision to have a child. And this is an anomaly. And I guess the other part of it, which is even more perplexing, is that you have a large number of women across the country who don't see the prospects of having a husband who will support them and their children. And so as a result, I want to have children by a certain point in time. I know my biological clock is ticking, so I've got to figure out how to have a child because I know I have very few to no prospects for having a husband, someone who can support me and the children. And that's another dialogue in and of itself.
Right. So if you're financially able to raise a child by yourself and you make that decision, then that's fine. But for very young girls, teenage girls, who someone hadn't finished school, haven't had a chance to go to college, don't have a career, knowing that the end result of this is that you're going to be stuck on some kind of public support in order to take care of you and the child. Something that generally in the past, the man would have to provide for you. And in this situation, I think the mindset is too lax when it comes to who you lay down with, who you have sex with, who you have a baby with. I thought when we passed the free birth control in America that would solve this problem, that some were saying that the problem was that these women have a lack of child birth control, and that was the reason that this proliferation of babies was existing. Well, okay, now birth control is free for women, and we still have this problem. And so birth control wasn't the answer, is my point. I don't think it's going to change until somehow the mindset of women become, I'm going to be a little more selective about who I lay down with, or who I have sex with and have a child with. It's one thing to have sex with someone that you know is a deadbeat guy, but maybe that's what you want to do. It's a whole other thing when you carry it to the next step and get pregnant for this person. Take precaution. Do not have children with deadbeat men. I mean, that's just what it's going to come down to. If a man wants you to have his child, which I know a lot of guys will whisper that in your ear, I want you to have my child, because he knows the child becomes an anchor. It's going to be hard for another man to come into your life when you have children in tow. So the only man that's going to be able to come back into your life is him. So the child becomes an anchor for you to hold you down while he continues to go out and, fool around and be involved with as many women as he wants to. And then whenever he wants to come back and pick it up with you, he can, because you're not involved with any other men because you have children. A lot of men don't want to involve themselves with women who have children, at least in anything that's going to lead towards marriage.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say this. There are a lot of women out there who are doing quite well financially and professionally, and so they technically can financially take care of the children. But my issue is this. It's not just being able to financially pay for children, but you're talking about emotional support of the child. And not just emotional support of the child, but emotional support of the mother of the child. That is what we see that's missing from a lot of our children, especially a lot of our young men who unfortunately don't have any direction because they have very little support from a male who is taking a leadership role in the household, much less in the community. And as a result, we have too many young men. We have a lot of young men who are out there doing great things, but we have too many who have very little direction, who are dysfunctional, who are destructive, and who end up being incarcerated or at a bare minimum are underachieving.
Well, they see that to them that women exist to take care of them because mama is taking care of them.
And that's the responsibility of the mother to say, hey, you got to draw a line in the ground. If you're going to procreate, you need to make sure that it's built with a support system, primarily with a man who is going to support and take care of you and be a father to their children. And that's where the responsibility and accountability on the mother's part before all of this happens. Now, there are situations where you get married, you have children, things don't work out.
Right.
I understand that. But typically, when you reach that point, you have a man who has established the fact that he wants to be married, that he wants to be a father. If it doesn't work out, he's typically still in the life of those children. But when you start having children prior to that time, typically bets off that you're going to have a father who's going to be responsible for those children because he wouldn't take responsibility for you.
And seeing someone, that's why I say, just seeing your father or your husband get up and go to work every day, regardless of how much money he brings home, that is very important for young boys to see, young girls to see, to understand what a functional family is supposed to look like. We're so dysfunctional now that there's just no shame in our dysfunctional relationships now. Women raising children by themselves used to be 70, 80 years ago, was almost unheard of. You'd have to leave the community. You'd have to go someplace else, have your child, come back years later and claim that the husband was killed in a war or something, and got hit by a car, and then became acceptable for you as a widower with a child as opposed to a single mother with a child.
So I guess the question being, with this large a volume of households being raised by black women, in particular in our community, and we start talking about what he calls the proliferation of baby mama drugs, how do you begin to turn the corner on this? How do you begin to solve these problems? Because, I mean, Jimmy, honestly, I can't say it's the only thing, but a large part of this was created during the 70s and 80s.
The whole sexual revolution, all of our revolutions in America worked out okay for white people. The drug revolution, they ended up being president and being potheads, cokeheads, and the sexual revolution, they end up with marriages and strong families. It becomes disastrous for us following their movements. Our drug revolution fill the prisons up with black men.
Absolutely.
Sexual revolution filled the hospital wards up with babies, and now our communities are filled with babies we can't take care of.
And then you talk about AIDS and HIV and the catastrophic effect that had on our community.
Correct.
As well.
And especially women. I think still the number one killer of
Absolutely.
women, black women in America, is HIV.
Yeah. Nobody's talking about it.
No one's talking about it. No one's talking about it. That's true. Except this show. And one other thing before we transition to our next talking point, Tom, is it too late to bring back the chastity belt?
I don't think it's ever. I don't ever think it's too late.
Should we have some kind of campaign that encourages folks to the women to keep their ankles crossed?
But Jimmy, I mean, the thing about it is, if this isn't happening in the church, I'm not saying that it's not happening in our churches in general, but I mean, where else is it going to come from except in the church community? And I guess the question is, what is the narrative right now in our church community? And I guess, is it being addressed?
I don't think it's been addressed enough, because in the black community, we tend to keep our problems under wrap. We don't like pulling the sheets back and exposing our problems. You get criticized and vilified by black voices when you do that. Let me add, unfortunately, we're almost out of time. We need to move on to next talking point.
Because we do need to address how we begin to turn the corner.
Correct. So we're going to ask for comments from our listeners, our subscribers. To send us your comments. We're going to come back and revisit this topic, the whole baby mama topic, at a later date.
And we may have to have just a segment on this one.
Yeah, I agree. Or maybe even 2 segments. It's something that's very complicated and just not going to be solved with a few minutes here and there. So let's, with the little time we have left, let's move on to the what Raleigh thinks is the #1 issue in the black community.
Unquestioned allegiance to progressive policy.
Okay, and in the interest of transparency, I'm a far right-wing conservative, so I would certainly agree with Raleigh's point, and the video's point on this. I don't know if it's necessarily the #1 issue, but it is a big issue, Tom. And let's just go ahead and tackle the 800-pound gorilla. We have a lot of programs that, and people were well-meaning when they put the programs together. I'm not saying anyone did this volitionally or with any malice of heart. But the end result is that when we look at the result of the program, if it has not paid dividends, is it fair to keep the programs going just for the sake of the program? Or should we revisit some of these programs, kill some of them that are not working, modify some that have shown some results, and try to improve them, and then look at new ways to, so job training, for instance. No one has a problem with job training if it's going to lead to people going into the workforce. If you're training people for jobs that are needed, not training people, I mean, I know there are barber schools all over the place, but how many barbers do we actually need for the money that we pour into, beautician schools, for instance, nail schools? We need plumbers, and we need electricians, we need mechanics. My air conditioning vent guy, heater guy that comes to my house, a guy named Charlie, he has a small business here. Charlie and all of his employees are all 60 plus. And so when I asked Charlie, I said, well, where are the young people in your truck, man? Where are the 20 and 30-year-old guys? And he says, all my people average anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 a year as helpers on his truck. Now, they don't have to be the master plumbers. They're the helpers, and they work long hours. He pays them really well. He just says young people just don't want the jobs.
And I find that pretty interesting because you have a lot of folks who are, of the mindset that there aren't any jobs out there. But when you look, I mean, you may have to get your hands a little bit dirty. You may have to roll up your sleeves. But I mean, these are 6-figure jobs.
Yes, they are.
I mean, when you talk about, I can trust the plumber that comes to my house, the electrician that comes to my house.
How old is he?
He's probably well into his 40s.
Okay.
And the electricians that
he'd be a young guy in this industry.
Yeah, exactly. he would be the young guy. But you think about things like that. And even if we go back, Jimmy, back to the 20th century, we're talking about trades. I was talking to my mom a little bit earlier today. Things like shoe repair.
Yes.
Things.
We throw shoes away now. Who even thinks they even take their shoes to be repaired anymore? And you're right, 30, 40 years ago, now that I think about it.
Or even seamstresses. I mean, I remember that I couldn't find a black household without a nice single sewing machine in it. Now folks don't even know how to sew.
That's true. That is true.
But I mean, that was a legitimate profession.
Yes, correct.
That you could make pretty good money off of.
And probably still today.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing now that you bring that up, Tom. I mean, I have like pants and a button is falling off. I give the pants away at that point. Take them to Goodwill and drop them off. Go buy another pair. For something as simple as sewing a button on. I mean, I think this is what happens when life skills, social skills, are substituted with something else of convenience. It's easy to allow the government to step in and solve some of your problems, and you're thinking, we all think collectively that this is what the government should do. But we never look at the end result, is that when you take away a person's ability to sew, they're not going to be able to hem those pants up and sew a button on anymore. When you take away the guy who now knows how to sew a pair of shoes, or the seamstress who knows how to make a dress. You're right. 50 years ago, I think a lot of households had sewing machines.
Yes.
And people knew how to sew and make clothes. It wasn't uncommon in the black community for people to make that dress for that Sunday dress rather than go
That's
buy
what Big
something.
Mama used to be. That's what Big Mama.
But I guess if you have the money now, you don't need to have those skills, and we don't transfer those skills to our kids. We now make them even more socially inept. And if something happens, now you have to turn to the government a lot sooner than maybe generations ago when you still had some skills to be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's kind of a difficult situation to address, because it has become so broad and so pervasive now that you have a lot of folks who feel like they're ultimately dependent on the government for their livelihoods.
Yes, my daughter has a friend that she's stopped being friends with, and I think I'm starting to rub off on her maybe a little too much. And she says that, why aren't you guys friends anymore? She says, well, she's married now, which I guess is a good thing.
Right.
But Tom, the husband works at Amazon, which is not to embarrass Amazon.
Right.
He makes $12 an hour. They have 2 kids. They have twins on the way.
They have 2 kids plus twins on the way, or they have
2 kids plus she's pregnant now with twins.
So they're gonna have 4 kids with some. Okay.
So they're receiving Section 8. Now they're having 2 more kids. I guess they'll get even more money for Section 8, because now they're going to move out of the apartment to get a house, get more in food stamps, more in WIC, more in S-chip. I mean, all this stuff they're signed up for, the benefits they received. And the husband can't go out and make any more than what he's making now, because he runs a risk of losing the other benefits if he made any more money than he's making now.
So he has a disincentive to actually go out and make, well, I guess it's a double-edged sword, because from a lack of a better term, a dependent mind standpoint, I don't want to make any more money because I lose my benefit, but from an independent standpoint, I want to become an entrepreneur so I can make more money so I can take care of my wife and my kids.
Correct. And
that is what I would call his kissing cousin to victimology.
That's a good way of putting it.
Exactly.
That's a good way of putting it. And so a lot of the social programs are well-intentioned. It's just sometimes the end result are disastrous. And sometimes we need to look at that. I would be okay with putting a cap or the amount of benefits, put some time periods on it, encouraging people that, look, in 3 years, 5 years, this stuff is going to go away. So you
right. Now, I remember during the Clinton administration, it's been a long time ago, that they were given so many years.
Welfare reform, that
exactly.
was 5 years.
And then after that, you're cut off.
But unfortunately, Bush gave in to pressure, and he eliminated the time limit, or relaxed it a little bit, and then
for the vote, to get the vote.
To get the vote and probably keep pressure off his back. Mm-hmm. And then President Obama got rid of the work requirement and got rid of the time limit altogether. Mm-hmm. So it started with Bush, relaxing some of the rules, and then Obama officially killed it. So we're back to the pre-Clinton Welfare Reform Act. Now you just get it for life again. So there's no limits placed on it. There's no work requirement. There is
no incentive to do better.
There's no incentive to do better. So people thought that it was too stringent to have these limits placed on it, and that it was cruel. But what's cruel, Tom, is it, in this case, for a person who's capable and able to simply provide help for them and keep them locked into a low-paying job for the rest of his life, or encourage him to go out and get trained. Like I said, even if he works with his hands, go out and become an electrician helper, a plumbing helper. These guys make pretty good money. They make more than $12 an hour.
I can guarantee you that. In addition to that, every time that I am calling my plumber or electrician or someone who does that kind of work, I mean, they are stretched so thin that it easily takes a week to get somebody to come to your house to fix that kind of stuff. And so there's obviously a high demand, but obviously you have folks who just don't want to learn the trade.
Now, Charlie will come out in a couple of days, but you're right. It's not like you pick the phone up right now and they're out there this afternoon. It takes a little time because they are busy. They have plenty of work. But like I said, it seems to be an industry that's full of old men and that are having trouble attracting young guys. So for young men out there who are looking for work, I know there are jobs out there. They may not pay, $20, $30, $40 an hour today, but if you get in there, get your foot in there, time and experience will allow you to command more for your time.
Absolutely, and it puts you in a position where you ultimately have control over your destiny. Mm-hmm. You're able to, over a period of time, build a successful business, generate financial freedom, generate personal freedom, and at the end of the day, I mean, that's really the American dream.
That is the American dream. And that dream is being taken away from the black community for people who are trapped in these programs. When I lived in Plano, my next door neighbor worked at HUD. He was the lead architect. And he was telling me about two ladies that he knew that were in homes that were provided by HUD. And one of them was kind of in the same situation. Both of them had jobs, and they were both offered promotions. But the promotion would take them out of the range of getting Section 8. They would lose their benefit if they took the promotion. One lady took it, even though she was going to now have to go out and pay for her place to stay. But she did it because she had a son, and it was important to her to break the cycle and get and become self-sufficient. The other lady declined the promotion because, as she put it, the promotion, the increase in pay, was not enough to cover or to replace what she was going to lose in Section 8. So she turned it down. So for a person who's trapped in these social programs, is that fair to them?
No, that brings up a very good point. But I mean, you look at the alternative to that. I mean, the opportunity is out there. Unfortunately, if you reach a point in your life mentally where you feel that you ultimately are fighting to try to stay within a certain bar so you can get community benefits, I mean, you will always. I don't want to call it being a rat race. That's more of a corporate term. But you'll always be adjusting. Yeah. You'll always be adjusting to figure out how do I maximize my subsidy.
That is true. So the music's starting to play in time, so it means we need to start wrapping things up and winding down. I think this is a subject matter that all five of them could easily be individual shows, and certainly we know we're going to come back and definitely revisit the baby mama topic and give some more thought to that, and certainly see what we can do to encourage young men to go out here and get into the workforce in a serious way and put the time and effort in, work your way up a seniority ladder where you start making a lot more money and you can take care of your family. And let's not be so quick to lean on the government to take responsibility for our kids. With that being said, we wanted to thank our sponsors. We want to say thank you to Fitness 360 for allowing us to use their building.
And MOTC Telecom for providing the equipment.
And for Us Films that does the editing and uploading to YouTube for us.
Of course, our viewers just like you.
I always forget the viewers. How could I forget the viewers? Man, you're right. And our viewers and subscribers, please spread the word. Please sign up and leave us comments. Speaking of comments, we have a couple of comments that I want to respond to. So we will be reviewing the movie Equalizer 2.
Right.
That was one of the comments from Ms. Tanya. And then Mr. Chris from Trophy Club actually suggested we cover what's going to be the next show, which is the whole topic of marriage.
Okay, very good.
So we will respond to your comments. So please keep. I want to encourage you to send your comments in, and we're always looking for new and interesting things to talk about. Things that are pertinent to you are pertinent to us.
Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Take care. Bye.